I've got a lot of subjects to cover today, so I'm going to try to make every one of these videos I do today short, concise, and to the point. In light of what has been happening in the Middle East, before I get rolling on the other subject matters, I have to cover this one first. And the subject begins on Channel 7 of Israeli news, which is IsraelNationalNews.com. Title is Crashing on the Rocks of Middle East Realities. On May 14th, at the official ceremony dedicating the much-anticipated opening of U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accurately stated, "The truth and peace are interconnected. A peace that is built on lies will crash on the rocks of Middle East realities." While pounding the lectern, he punctuated his point with no less a truism: you can only build peace on truth. And then before I continue, let me remind everyone that Meir Yolovitz wrote this article, and my views do not necessarily 100% of the time reflect those of the views of Meir Yolovitz. Having said that, I will continue. While pounding the lectern, he punctuated his truth with no less than a truism: you can only build peace on truth. And then he proceeded to be less than truthful. While speaking into several international microphones in the hours and days that followed, Netanyahu repeated that tiresome mantra that Israel was looking forward to sitting down with Mahmoud Abbas and negotiating a reasonable and workable solution to a conflict that had gone on for too long. The offer or the suggestion was disingenuous because the Israeli leader understood all too well that the Palestinian Authority was that implacable enemy with which one needs to wage war rather than pretend to seek peace. Abbas, happy to take advantage of that natural juxtaposition of being compared to Hamas and its violent assault on Israel's border with Gaza, which was taking place in real time, was still looking to develop his reputation among the Arabs as the warrior who stood up to Israel, even while his own days seemed quite numbered. To do so, he needed to match the bellicose pronouncements emerging from Hamas that no Arab Palestinian leader would accept the recognition of the Jewish state within any borders. No need to be untruthful here, he complied, falling on deaf Western ears as it has since 1948. It seemed obvious that the conflict was not territorial. Let's rephrase that. It should have been obvious. There was another truth that remained untold. While most of the world lamented the American decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's rightful capital, Israelis celebrated with a euphoria that was last experienced when the United States celebrated its bicentennial on July the 4th, 1976. Yes, Entebbe. Proponents of a strong and secure Israel could now boast that the Jewish claim to Jerusalem was not only biblical, historical, and, of course, moral, but now political as well. After all, the President of the United States said it was so, after his three predecessors had reneged on exactly the same promise. A necessary footnote. Had that same president lost the election to Hillary Clinton on November the 8th, 2016, it would be Abbas who would be celebrating the official recognition of Palestine as a 23rd Arab state. Note the number, 23rd Arab state, with which the Jewish state only being one, and the region's second or third Palestinian state, depending on how one counted Jordan and or Gaza. Thankfully, it remains only historical footnote, certainly as long as Donald Trump remains president until January of 2021 or January 2025. Back to the euphoria, it needs to be slightly tempered, and I would agree with that assessment. First, let's give Trump his due. He not only recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, but he actually moved the embassy to Tel Aviv, or from Tel Aviv to the city that had been the epicenter of the Jewish nation 3,000 years before Tel Aviv was ever established. Could things be any better? Well, yes, they could. And folks, I'm interrupting here. This is where we have to search for the truth and throw out the lies. As Mr. Yolovitz mentions here, words matter. In 3 of the 4 most important speeches delivered by an American spokesman about the state of Israel, the 4th being Daniel Patrick Moynihan's defense of the Jewish state following the infamous UN Zionism is Racism resolution in 1975, there was a common thread. Folks, listen carefully to this. A single sentence delivered verbatim by each of those speakers. President Trump, on December the 6th, 2017, when announcing the recognition of Jerusalem, Vice President Mike Pence's Knesset's brilliant and biblically based speech on January 22, 2018, and Jared Kushner while dedicating the embassy on May 14, 2018. The sentence, artfully crafted on some State Department's computer, posited that the United States calls on all parties to maintain the status quo at Jerusalem's holy sites, including at the Temple Mount, also known as the Haram al-Sharif. There was a 4th. In remarks delivered by video telecast during the same embassy celebration, Trump reiterated this with, and I quote, "We continue to support the status quo at Jerusalem's holy sites, including at the Temple Mount, also known as Haram al-Sharif," end quote. Did you get that? Yes, words matter because they quite often govern the narrative. It's the difference between Judea and Samaria versus the West Bank. It's the difference between Jerusalem and Al-Quds. You see where this is going, folks? It's the difference between the Temple Mount and Haram al-Sharif. It is no less the difference between recognizing Israel's existence as de facto rather than de jure. This distinction cannot be overstated. It goes beyond semantics. It is one of principles of title, of legitimacy. Words matter, but facts matter as well. Therefore, and not to be ignored, is the fact that the official United States position on Jerusalem is one that is not simply a matter of semantics. While the Trump administration recognizes that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, it does not, let me repeat, it does not recognize Israeli sovereignty over Jerusalem. We cannot disregard this fact, this truth. The status still disputed will be determined by future peace negotiations. Negotiations with those who do not officially recognize Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state. We have been reminded too many times to pretend that we did not hear. During that same historic week, Israel was quick and right to applaud the United States for recognizing the truth about the ill-fated Obama-Iran nuke deal, for disengaging from that charade. President Trump actually delivered on his campaign promise to withdraw from the agreement. After all, it was the worst deal since the ancient city of Troy allowed the Greeks to park their horse inside the city walls. And it was decidedly not in America's best interest, not an irrelevant component of a common sense national policy. In the same vein, in reaction to the equivocation that invariably defines the political promises made by virtually all despotic states or regimes, the United States canceled its scheduled summit with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Common sense demands as much. Israel, however, understanding no less the ill-intentioned motives of its own enemy, continues to petition Abbas's Palestinian Authority to return to the negotiating table, where the process has been defined always as Israel giving and the Arabs getting. In hypothesizing that slated to fail strategy that endeavors to present the party petitioning more loudly for peace as the good guys, Israel eschews any pretense to its own art of the deal. In the delusional search for a peace, it seems that the truth doesn't really matter. Netanyahu was right about one thing: a peace that is built on lies will crash on the rocks of Middle East realities. The deaf can hear it. That undeniable crashing sound. So that's the end of the article. So folks, what we have here is we have the inability of the Trump administration to embrace the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So, at one point in time, or I should say at a fairly long stretch of time, I believed that Daniel 9, let's go there, where it is written, where Gabriel is speaking to Daniel concerning the holy place. Okay? Now, I assumed, and rightly so, that the most holy place is Jerusalem. Okay? And, of course, I was correct. But you see, how do I put this? These little games that the nations play with Jerusalem, it's kind of like the little games that Pharaoh played with Moses and Aaron. So we will go and look at Gabriel's prophecy, where it's in verse 24, it says, 70 weeks are determined upon your people and upon your holy city. Now, and this is the reason why I believed that the holy place that it speaks of is Jerusalem. But when the nations act like Pharaoh, when it comes to Jerusalem, then the definition does change slightly. I'll show you where I'm going here. Upon your holy city, to finish the transgression, and to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Now, folks, the most holy, as we know it, is our Father in heaven. He is not anointed. So what is it talking about? It is talking about a place to be anointed or appointed. So we will go into, what did I just do? Go to Strong's Concordance, and let's examine this for a minute. I lost my place here. When we go and look in Daniel 9 and verse 20, he is speaking of, while he was praying for the people of Israel, before Jehovah my Elohim, for the holy mountain of my Elohim. The holy mountain is Mount Zion. Okay? So we'll go back to verse 24, where it says to anoint the most holy. It says, and it's just 4886, Mashach, which is to smear or anoint. And then it says Kodesh. And then it says Kodesh again. Kodesh means holy. So when it says holy twice, it is either the most holy place or the Holy of Holies. Where was the Holy of Holies located? On the Temple Mount. You see, now we have thought that the dispute over Jerusalem is over, at least with the United States of America, but now they're going to make the dispute about the holy place, the place where the Holy of Holies was once located. It will be reappointed to be the holy place. Why? Because that is going to be the very place where Jehovah's throne is going to sit. And you're telling me that the nations still refuse to recognize the Holy of Holies, or the place where the Holy of Holies was, as Israeli land, calling it by an Arab name. They do. So in all truth, there is, while the other nations are still disputing over Jerusalem, in the United States there is still one dispute between Israel's Elohim and the United States left. That is over the holy place. Now, folks, don't start sending me messages claiming that the Temple Mount is not. I'm not even going to. Don't even bother. I'm not going to answer you. I will delete it. Clearly, it is the holy place because that's where the last debate is over. Okay. So what we have here, we have basically the last item of contention, the most holy place. And as we read in Daniel 9 and verse 24, the dispute and the reconciliation, the finale, is over the most holy place, the Temple Mount. Now, I have said over and over again that it's absolutely not necessary for a so-called third temple to be built. In fact, I have pointed out that 3 temples have already been built and torn down. Solomon's temple, Zerubbabel's temple, which the Christian world simply does not recognize at all, Zerubbabel's temple, and then Herod's temple. There's already been 3. And if the Jews would have obeyed Jehovah in the days of, I believe it was Zerubbabel. Watch this. Yes, it's in Zechariah 6 and verse 12. So if those of you who claim there's another temple to be built yet, before Messiah comes, your narrative is off in 2 ways. I'll mention the first way that your narrative is off. It's in Zechariah 6, and let's start in verse 9. And the word of Jehovah came unto me, saying, Take of them of the captivity, even of Heldai, of Tobiah, and of Jedediah, which are come from Babylon. Now this was when the Jews were being brought back from Babylon. And come you the same day, and go into the house of Josiah, the son of Zephaniah, and then take silver and gold, and make crowns, and set them upon the head of Yehoshua, son of the Most High? No. Yehoshua, son of Josedek, the high priest, and speak unto him, saying, Thus saith Jehovah of hosts, saying, Look, the man whose name is the branch, and he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of Jehovah. Even he shall build the temple of Jehovah, and he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne, and he shall be a priest upon his throne, and the council of peace shall be between them both. And the crown shall be to Helem, and to Tobiah, and to Jedediah, and to him the son of Zephaniah. Oh, you see, folks, for a memorial in the temple of Jehovah. And they that are far off shall come and build in the temple of Jehovah, and you shall know that Jehovah of hosts hath sent me to you, and this shall come to pass if you diligently obey the voice of Jehovah your Elohim. You know, when theologians try to pick apart and twist and wrest the words of the prophets to fit their own narrative, they go way off the track to destruction. Clearly, this was talking about Yehoshua, son of Josedek. Now, but this is a pattern of things to come. You see, there is another Yehoshua, son of Jehovah, or as in what the prophets say, son of David. Of course, I believe that Yehoshua, son of Yosedek, the high priest. Yes, Yosedek, the high priest, he had to be of Aaron, didn't he? You see, folks, that is why when you go to Revelation, verse 22, I saw no temple in the city, for Jehovah Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. You see, the Holy of Holies, the location of the Holy of Holies as spoken of in Daniel 9, and I believe it was verse 24, is a location. It is not a temple. It's a location where the Holy of Holies once stood. And of course, the world balks like Pharaoh. We're going to go to talk about Pharaoh. All right. Well, I guess I'll just try to go into maybe Exodus 1. See what happens. Misspelled it. Okay. Exodus 2. Birth of Moses. Moses kills an Egyptian. Exodus 3. And when you go to Exodus 3 and verse 10, Jehovah says, Come now, therefore, I will send you unto Pharaoh, that you may bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. All right. And notice in verse 12, and he said, Certainly I will be with you, and this shall be a token unto you, that I have sent you. When you have brought forth the people out of Egypt, you shall serve Elohim upon this mountain. Now, let's go to the next chapter. You have Moses' staff and the appointment of Aaron. Moses leaves for Egypt. And Jehovah said unto Aaron, this thing is blocking some of my and he went out to go out to meet Moses, and he went and met him in the mount of Jehovah and kissed him. Here we go with that place again. And Moses told Aaron all the words of Jehovah, who had sent him, and all the signs which he had commanded. And Moses went and gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. And Aaron spoke all the words with which Jehovah had spoken to Moses, and did the signs in the sight of the people. And the people believed. Yes, they believed. And they will believe again. And when they had heard that Jehovah had visited the children of Israel, that he had looked upon their affliction, then they bowed their heads and worshipped. Very different from the first time that Moses tried to save Israel. Now, so all we have in Exodus 5 is Pharaoh's first refusal. Verse 1, and afterward Moses and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh, this is what Jehovah Elohim of Israel says. Let my people go, that it may hold a feast unto me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, who is Jehovah, that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I know not Jehovah, neither will I let Israel go. And they said, the Elohim of the Hebrews has met with us. Let us go, we pray you, 3 days' journey into the desert, and sacrifice unto Jehovah our Elohim, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. And the king of Egypt said unto them, wherefore do you, Moses and Aaron, relieve the people from their works? Go, get you back to your burdens. And Pharaoh said, behold, the people of the land now are many, and you make them rest from their burdens. So he goes and adds to the burdens. Okay. All right. So I will go then to Exodus 6. And when Jehovah said unto Moses, you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh with a strong hand. He shall let them go, and with a strong hand he shall drive them out of his land. Interesting, huh? And Jehovah spoke to Moses and said unto him, I am Jehovah, and I appeared unto Abraham and unto Isaac and unto Jacob by the name of Jehovah Almighty and by Elohim Almighty, and by the name Jehovah was I not known to them. What? He was not known unto Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob by the name of Jehovah? And I also have established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land of their pilgrimage wherein they were strangers. And I have heard the groanings of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians kept in bondage. And I have remembered my covenant. For this reason, say to the children of Israel, I am Jehovah, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and will rid you out of the bondage. And I will redeem you with a stretched out arm and with great judgments. And I will take you to me for a people, and I will be to you an Elohim, and you shall know that I am Jehovah your Elohim, which brings you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians. And I will bring you unto the land concerning which I did swear to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, and will give it to you for a heritage, for I am Jehovah. And Moses spoke unto the children of Israel, but they hearkened not unto Moses because of anguish of spirit and for cruel bondage. Now, we will go. And I'm going to go start with the first plague. Because Pharaoh's heart was hardened. And what we have here today is the same thing. Pharaoh's heart is hardened. Please, folks, be patient with me. I'm getting to my point here in just a few minutes. And Jehovah said, this is verse 14, unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened, for he refuses to let the people go. Get you unto Pharaoh in the morning. Look, he goes out to the water, and you shall stand by the river bank against where he will come. And the rod with which turned into a serpent shall you take in your hand, and you shall say to him, Jehovah of the Hebrews has sent me unto you, saying, let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness. And behold, hitherto you would not listen. Thus saith Jehovah Elohim, in this you shall know that I am Jehovah. Behold, I will smite the rod that is in my hand upon the waters which are the rivers, and they shall be turned to blood. Read the first, second trumpet sounds and the first and second vials of wrath upon the Gentiles. Very interesting. And the fish as it in the water shall die, and the river shall stink, and the Egyptians shall refuse to drink of the water of the river. And Jehovah spake unto Moses, saying unto Aaron, take your rod and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon the rivers, upon their ponds, and upon all the pools of water, that they would become blood, and they may be blood throughout all of the land of Egypt, both vessels of wood and in vessels. Why did he put this plague of blood on the Egyptians? Because the Egyptians murdered the male babies of Israel. And so it happened. Now, I said I was getting to my point, and we see the plague of frogs, we see the plague of gnats, the plague of flies, and Pharaoh's heart is still hardened. Fifth plague, livestock. The sixth plague, boils. The seventh plague, hail. And so, here we have in verse 27, something happens. Pharaoh sent and called Moses and Aaron and said unto him, I have sinned this time. Jehovah is righteous, and I and my people are wicked. There seemed to be repentance, didn't it? Seemed to be. But was it real? Entreat Jehovah, because it's enough. There be no more mighty thundering and hail, and I will let you go, and you shall stay no longer. Moses said unto him, As soon as I am gone out of the city, I will spread my hands unto Jehovah, and the thunder shall cease, and neither shall there be any more hail, that you may know that the earth belongs to Jehovah. But as for you and your servants, I know that you will not yet fear the Jehovah Elohim. You're lying. And so I personally, Henry, say that when a government claims to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, but still demands the status quo at the most holy place, that government, that president, and their representatives are all lying. They're liars. Moses called out Pharaoh. I'm calling out President Donald Trump, Vice President Mike Pence, and their representatives. You're not telling the truth. And as the writer of this article, Crashing on the Rocks of the Middle East, has rightly said, that there cannot be peace without truth. Absolutely, 100%, right on the money. And as we all know, folks, this very man, Pharaoh, who claimed that he was going to let Israel go, not only refused to let Israel go, but he repented halfway again and again and refused to let the children of Israel go. This is the same scenario we have going on here. And then we have, the eighth plague, the plague of locusts. Verse 16 of Exodus 10, Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron in haste and said, I have sinned against Jehovah, your Elohim, and against you. Therefore now forgive, I pray you, my sin, only this once, and entreat Jehovah, your Elohim, that he may take away from me this death only. And he went out from Pharaoh and entreated Jehovah. And you know what happened next. And then the ninth plague, the plague of darkness. The plague of darkness that incidentally is going to fall upon the kingdom of the beast, the Christians. And we will go to verse, let's see here. Verse 24, and Pharaoh called unto Moses and said, Go, you serve Jehovah, let only your flocks and your herds be stayed. You see, halfway. You can go, but your flocks and your herds have to stay. It's kind of like President Donald Trump saying, Jerusalem belongs to Israel, but the Temple Mount doesn't. Same thing. Same attitude. It's satanic. It's adversarial, and it will prove to be in the end. It will. And here is the way that it's going to be proven. You see, we have the plague of the firstborn. And of course, as I have said a few minutes ago, that the Egyptians murdered the male children of the Israelites. And so, payback was necessary. All right. Let's see if I make sure that I don't call the elders. Okay. Verse 29 of Exodus 12, and it came to pass that at midnight Jehovah smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians. There was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house wherein one was not dead. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, Rise up and get you forth from among my people, both you and the children of Israel. Go and serve Jehovah, as you have said, also take your flocks and your herds. He relented now the flocks and the herds. In other words, giving Israel more and more in the bargaining table, like is happening right now. This time, he says, everything go. Even to the point where the children of Israel, or the Egyptians, gave the children of Israel everything that they had. Where it said they spoiled the Egyptians. Now, Exodus 13 and verse 17. Just like today, where the world does not want to give up the holy place, the most holy place, that Gabriel talked about in Daniel 9 and verse 24. Verse 17 of Exodus 13, it came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go, that Jehovah led them through the way of the land of the Philistines. That was near. For Jehovah said, Lest peradventure the people repent when they see war, and they return to Egypt. But Jehovah led the people, he led them not through the way of the land of Philistines, although that was near, for he said, Lest peradventure the people repent when they see war, and they return to Egypt. But Jehovah led the people round about, through the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea, and the children of Israel went up harnessed out of the land of Egypt. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had straitly sworn the children of Israel, saying, Jehovah will surely visit you, and you shall carry my bones hence with you. And he took their journey from Sukkot and encamped into Etam. in the edge of the wilderness. And Jehovah went before them in a pillar of cloud to lead them by the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to lead them by night, and to go day and night. And he took not away the pillar of the cloud, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. And what happens next? You see, Pharaoh agreed. At this point, he said everything. He let go of everything. The United States government has not let go of the holy place. Verse 6 of Exodus 14, and it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and of the servants were turned against the people. And they said, why have we done this? That we have let Israel go from serving us. And he made ready his chariot, and took his people with him. And he took 600 chosen chariots of all the chariots of Egypt, and captains over every one of them. And Jehovah hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, that he pursued after the children of Israel. And the children of Israel went out with a high hand. But the Egyptians pursued after them all the horses and the chariots of Pharaoh, and all his horsemen and his army, and overtook them encamped by the sea beside Piraheroth before Baal-zephon. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were sore afraid. We know the rest of this story, folks. I'm telling you right now, it pains me to say this. I wish it were not true. But the United States government is pulling a Pharaoh on Israel. I don't know where this leads at this point, but I do know that based upon what Gabriel said in Daniel 9 verse 24, the final dispute over Jerusalem is going to be about the most holy place, where the Holy of Holies was once located at the Temple Mount. And when it is time to anoint the place where the Holy of Holies once was, I am here to tell you that there is no nation on the earth that is going to agree to it. It will have to be taken by force. And the rest of the world are either going to have to submit, or they will be beaten down by the owner of the most holy place, Jehovah Almighty. I think that I have made my point today.